So we know what a macro is, a series of commands that are stored that can be recalled when we want them to run again. But what we don't know is how we can actually create that macro. So let's take our two little macro steps here and look at how we could create the first one. So the first macro is going to select cell A1, type your name, well that's going to be my name, format the cell as bold and increase the font size, and then auto-fit column A. At that point, it will stop. Now, as I've mentioned, we actually create macros by recording the steps that we want to carry out. So let's create a new file. That's a new blank workbook. And the first stage is to set the recorder going. Now we can do that in two ways. We can either go to the developer ribbon and click in on record macro, or they've supplied a very quick shortcut key. Down in the bottom green bar, just after the ready option, is a record macro option. If we click this button, it will give us our record macro dialog box. Now we get this box whether we choose the button from the bottom left, or if we click record macro, we get the same dialog box. Now the first thing is to give your macro a name. Now macro names cannot contain spaces. If we were to type a space in there, it would reject the name. So we tend to use camel case when creating macro names. So I want this one to type my own name. So I'm going to call it type my name. And you can see there, it's called camel case because it starts lowercase and then has a uppercase letter for each new word. So like little lumps, like a camel. Do I want to add a keyboard shortcut at this stage? I'm going to leave that blank for the moment. And then where do I want to store the macro? Now there are 3 locations, but really there are only 2. You either store them in the personal macro workbook that we'll explore shortly, or you store them in a new workbook, or you store them in this workbook. Now personally, there's only 2 choices. It's either the personal macro workbook or this workbook. If we store the macro in this workbook, then the macro stays with this workbook and only with this workbook. If we store it in the personal macro workbook, then it stays with your machine and only with your machine. So if somebody else actually opened this file, it would not contain the macro. So we're going to leave this one in this workbook for the time being. Description. This will type my name. So we've given it a name. We're not having a keyboard shortcut at this moment, and we're storing it in this workbook. And we've added a description, which is optional. Okay. This then starts the recorder running. Now I know the recorder is running because on the ribbon, it says stop recording now instead of start recording. And down in the status bar at the bottom left, it's a little white square as opposed to the previous icon, which was sort of a square but not solid. It has like a little dot in it. So everything I do is being recorded. Now luckily, the macro only records actions and not time. So you can actually record the macro very slowly, taking your time to make sure you don't make any mistakes. Because if you do make a mistake, it records that as well. So it will record you making the mistake, and if you undo it, undoing the mistake. So what I want my little macro here to do is to go to A1, type my name, then format that cell. So on the home ribbon, I said let's go bold and go to 12 points. And then we said let's auto fit the column. So I've typed my name, I've formatted the cell effectively, gone to bold, 12 points, and I've auto fit, so I've widened the column. That's all I want this macro to do. At this point, I would then stop recording. So I come down to the white square at the bottom and stop. And you can see the icon's now gone back to the record macro icon. How do I know my macro has been recorded? How do I know it now exists? Well, if I go back to the developer ribbon and come to macros, that opens the macros dialog box. And we can see in the list, along with any others that already exist, type my name is my macro. And I can run that from here by simply clicking run. Now running it on this sheet will appear to have no effect because we already have my name in A1. So let's close that, add a new sheet, go back to the macro list, choose type my name, and then run it. And you can see my name in bold autofit appears in A1. So I recorded the macro very slowly, taking my time, making sure I didn't make any mistakes. But when Excel plays the macro back, it plays it back as fast as it can carry out the actions, which is usually pretty fast. So if I created a new sheet, macro list, type my name, and run, we see that my name appears in A1, bold, 12 points, and auto fit again. So that's the basics of creating a macro. We've recorded the steps. Those steps have then been stored with this file, and we can then run that macro by simply going to the macros list, choosing it and running it.